Welcome to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Frank talk about sex and dating.
All right. Welcome to episode number 7. In the trailer and the intro episode, we mentioned that we were going to go there and really have discussions about certain topics. Well, today's episode is definitely one of them. If you haven't, you can't tell by the title already, but I'll either add a clip from my stand-up or just share the link at the end. We're going to talk about do's and don'ts about oral sex for men and women, both giving and receiving, enthusiasm versus technique, and just see where we go with the conversation. I asked lots of people to be on the show, and lots of people don't mind talking about it, but not necessarily on air. So I do have Vince here with me today, who is also going to share from both perspectives as well. You know, obviously giving and receiving. We both have experience for both, as most people do in the world. So we were going to start the conversation. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
No problem. And like I said, I'm very thrilled that you would actually join, because I was going to say this is pretty taboo, or TMI, as I like to say, for a lot of people. But I think it's a much needed conversation. And a lot of people may think they're better than they are, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because people want to be nice and just say like, oh yeah, that was awesome, it was great. And then I even have some ideas on how to focus, or enhance or redirect when necessary. So we can talk about all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I was going to say my thoughts. Well, I've talked to several, lots of guys, like I said, we'll talk about it, but then not necessarily on air. So one of the things I've heard are some complaints as far as receiving it. And then maybe you can comment on some of these complaints as well. And the biggest thing they say, well, a lack of moisture when giving oral sex, like blowjobs to men, the teeth thing, a death grip, and in the wrong place are the main basic topics. Do you have any thoughts on those ideas, or agree or disagree?
Well, those are things you hear of. Like the teeth thing. I don't know that you would really have to try to get your teeth involved. I think it's difficult to put a pointer right on, when you're with somebody and it's just not feeling good about what it is. But when you're there, you have to be able to express it. And I'm not in the middle of it right now, so I'm trying to think back on times when I have. But it can be a bunch of things. It can be the place, it can be the person, it can be the time, it can be their technique, there's a difference between enthusiasm and just kind of I'm down here because I think he expects it, and when there's a lack of enthusiasm, it is very apparent to the receiver as far as men are concerned. Now, I don't know from the lady's point of view, if a guy's not really enthusiastic about it, can you tell?
Yeah, I don't think enthusiasm really matters as much for women, as long as they're down there. Technique is much more our preference to enthusiasm. I mean, No, I was going to say, so no thoughts on the other things. I mean, because I talked to lots of guys, like I said, they just, on this topic, trying to get people to be on the show. And they said a majority of men think that a majority of women are not very good at giving oral sex. Like pretty much, there's like one or two that are really good in their minds, and like the rest are like, okay. And I think more women probably think they're good at it. But I think the grip and the location of where they grip, and obviously, that's with hands, but the whole mouth thing too.
Those are important.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I've just heard where it like actually literally hurts because they, and I guess I'm not talking more oral sex. It's also manual.
Yeah, no, there can be, I think some people get a little too aggressive if they, want to, play with your testicles while they're doing it. And if you don't have a pair, you don't know that there's just a thin, fine line between what feels good and what feels like you just got kicked by a mule. So
Yeah.
that's an area to be cautious about. It's like everything. Every woman, just like every guy, I think has a little bit different of a technique. And
All right. Well, let's talk about the area like giving to women, like what your take on it or what you tend to do, or I can give you what I've heard works and know from experience, but also talk to other women and see if you agree or what you found. But all right, I'll start out with what I think is helpful. Knowing the woman's love language would be very helpful, especially if you're already in a relationship. But if she likes touch, do touch. If she and it starts early in the day. We all orgasm generally in our minds, so it starts. You want to have a close relationship. You want to have connection, and then you have touching and foreplay and kissing and not just jumping right to it. You have to. And the more turned on a woman is, the easier it'll be for her to have an orgasm, the more she'll enjoy it and want to do it more often. So, foreplay, touching other places, the actual clitoris is the place where we have orgasms, just FYI. And I think a lot of people don't realize like how important that spot is. And during oral sex, you also need to hit that spot as well as inside with a finger or two. So just FYI, if you're not doing that, it's very important to do them both. And then I've heard a guy say he does like a come here kind of motion when his finger is inside to hit the G spot. And then I've also heard women say like circling the thumb on the clit with the finger inside. So any thoughts on any of those techniques that you've experienced yourself or know of?
Well, there are, like I say, there are a lot of techniques. I guess I was fortunate in my career in this, and that I had some pretty good experiences early on, and I just kind of built from that. And I think a lot of people get turned off or not enthusiastic by it, when younger in life, when they have a bad experience, and it just kind of turns them off, or they're just like, I did that once, it wasn't so great. But
Yeah.
Technique, yeah. If you're the type of person, male or female, who really likes to do that, I think that's going to show through a bit. Do your fingers have to be involved? Sure. And your tongue and also communication. It's probably a big thing of it. And in oral, it's kind of funny because it's usually the receiver who has to do most of the communicating because the giver's mouth is kind of busy. But
have you seen techniques where communication, like to me, rather than saying like, do you like that, is more like, should I be faster or slower or harder or softer? So the person knows that you're actually wanting feedback versus, oh yeah, it's great. And you never say what you're really thinking.
Yeah, no, I can say when I'm the giver, yeah, feedback is very important. I know what I'm doing, but I know the physical actions I'm taking. I'm not saying I know what I'm doing, but yeah, you need that feedback. You need that. Hey, faster, slower, harder, softer. That's the spot. Don't stop. Whatever. It's very important. And as a receiver, you have to understand that. Whether you're male or female, that feedback loop there. The person you're with is kind of guessing. I think this is what's going to feel good. The last person I was with like this, whatever, but everybody's different. So,
yeah, I've definitely heard that where just because it works on one person, it's not going to work on another. So, and then you don't necessarily have to have that your go-to, or you can try it. And then and to me, like making sounds is like the key. Like even if you can't say anything, like if it's not working for me, I generally don't make noise. Like I'm not going to fake it, because if you fake it, they think, oh, this is working, and then do that every time. So if it's not working, don't make any noise, or make a less noise. And then as they get closer, make more noise. And then, or just say it, it feels amazing, whatever. But you need some clues as to what is working and what is not.
Absolutely. And like everything, it goes down to the communication. If you want to have a better time, it's when someone has their face in your lap is not the time to be demure and, I don't want to say dirty things or whatever. I mean, their face is in your lap. You're not going to really get much closer than that. So, speak your mind. Say what feels good. Say what feels bad. Say what you like more of. You've got one finger and say, hey, what, you only have one? How about two? Say what, you're not going to get much more intimate with a person than that. So don't be shy. Don't be, if I say that, he'll think I'm dirty, whatever. He's got his face in your lap.
Yeah. Well, and that does, and I mentioned this in lots of episodes about the double standard. Women have to feel like the good girls, but like you said, once they're already there, it's probably, and whether they're good or not, there is no judgment. It's just you're there, and if you're there, you might as well enjoy it. And I talk about that in my stand-up too.
Yeah, the thing that has concerned me, in the past has been when somebody doesn't make any sound, and you're like, "Hello." Is this a corpse? What's going on here? I mean, say something, do something, moan, do anything, but just lay there silent. I don't know. They're looking at something on their phone and not paying attention to what I'm doing. You got to have
feedback
some feedback. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. Or it's going to work. It's just not going to be as good of a time as it could be.
Yeah. And even like if they're in like a slightly off spot, you can always move yourself a little bit to like, or move the hand or move the kind of, bump the head or not bump it, but like push a little to the side, like, this way. And I didn't realize at one point I was like rubbing the head of the person I was with, and he used that as a guide to like faster or slower. And I didn't know that at the times, but as soon as he told me, of course, I was conscious of it, and that was no longer going to work. But apparently I was like mimicking it on anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you're not getting verbal feedback, you look for physical feedback, did they grab my head? Did they squeeze their legs? Did they open their legs more? It could be anything, but first and foremost, it shouldn't be just verbal. Hey, whatever you're doing right there doesn't feel so good, so let's try something else. Or that feels really great. Please don't stop. Or a little to the left, up a little, down a little, in a little, out a little, whatever.
It only benefits all. It's a win-win if you help them help you, and then everyone enjoys it, and you'll be more likely to want to do it in the future, especially when, after people get married, the whole stereotype is people don't have sex anymore. But, it could be that if it starts to lack or whatever, and then they're just, I don't know.
I think that whole after marriage, the sex peters out thing, a lot of that I think there's a very strong correlation between people talking about sex and people having sex. And if two people who are in a relationship, have that little banter, say little, enticing things, we're on phones or text messages during the day, the more that brings it into your mind, the more you're talking about it, the more you're going to end up doing it. So I think people, when they get married, maybe they move into the house together for the first time or whatever, and that talking about it starts to decline, and then the amount they have it starts to decline. Whereas, I'm by no means a psychiatrist or psychologist or any kind of health professional in any way, shape, or form, but I think that, my experiences have been, talk about it. And when you talk about it, you're thinking about it, and then you're thinking about you want to do it, and then you do it.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I was going to say,
it.
yes. And Yeah. Or that's what I was a good segue. I was going to mention some of the resources in the beginning. I don't even think I mentioned that as a thing I would do, but there's a website, Make Love Not Porn, that actually has some instructions as well for oral sex. And then Goop Lab on Netflix. It's by Gwyneth Paltrow. She has an episode dedicated to female orgasms. Like apparently there are women that have never had any. So they have a woman actually give herself an orgasm. They show how she does it. They show pictures of the anatomy of all different women. So you can see that, how the diverse we are. And also there's a show on Netflix called Sex Explained. There's an entire episode on female orgasms. And a really good show, Sex Life on Netflix, which is a very telling perspective from the woman, what a woman would be turned on by. And, it's all about, I say it in my stand-up all the time, it's all about the clit. They are focusing on it, and that is how women enjoy it. And if you want women to have sex with you more, you have to pay attention to that spot. And I'm sure are things that you would prefer women pay attention to for the male perspective. Any thoughts on that? Or is it a given?
Sure. I again, don't begrudge it. Oh, if I have to, that really doesn't enthuse anyone. Yeah.
As on that topic, I was going to say real quick. Sorry, I was going to say the better you do it, or the more enthusiastic, whatever technique or enthusiasm, but the better you are, the faster they are at actually enjoying it and having the final result. So to me, like doing a good job makes it go faster. Not that it's a bad thing to do, but when you do it well, it can be quicker and or lead to other things too, just to get started.
Well, exactly. And lubrication, yes. But I mean, that's a lot of personal preference. Some people like it just wet enough to get the job done. Some people like it very messy, sloppy, whatever. I like kind of in the middle, not too terribly dry, but not, I don't want to get the mop in the bucket later on and clean up.
Yeah.
And the hand has a role in it when I'm receiving it. Some people try to go, I guess we'd say old fashioned and just do everything with the mouth. But it's been my experience that doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
I
would agree. I call it the hand mouth combo.
Absolutely.
Combination. And you don't have to go down as far. Your hand can go further than your mouth, and then you don't have to do the whole gagging thing, this is way TMI, so I hope people are not offended. I'm like, oh my God. But we said we'd go there, and we're going there.
I can't speak for all men, but I can speak for this man. Yeah, that whole gagging thing, I'm just like, boy, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't look good. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't really float my boat. But yeah.
And porn nowadays makes it. Sorry, I was just to say, porn nowadays makes it seem like that's the thing to do too, and we all know that is not where you get your sex education. I talked about this in an earlier episode. That is not what you want to do in real life.
Well, here's the thing. My opinion about pornography is there is some pornography that just depicts two people making love or having sex or whatever in what we could say would be, traditional fashions. Now, the problem with porn is like the problem with anything is that it goes mental. And perhaps, I guess it's people who produce it say, oh, I don't want to, produce pornography that just looks like two people having regular sex because that's been done a million times. I have to make something that's just bonkers that no one's seen before. And I think that is where it really goes off the rails and really turns people off porn and really turns people off of maybe exploring and expanding the things they do with their partner because they're like, oh no, then this is going to be like that porn thing, yada, yada, yada. Well, I think that with some people that becomes a limiting factor. But I can say for myself personally, I don't think that as a preface, I viewed pornography before I ever had my first sexual experience with a woman. And I don't know that in that first relationship that I had, we had, regular intercourse sex, but from seeing the guy perform oral sex on the woman in the film, I thought, well, the lady in the film like this, let's give it a try. And it worked out. I don't know that without having previously seen pornography that the teenage version of myself would have had any idea to go put its face down there. But it all turned out for the best.
Yeah. And that was years ago, or now it's like not, that long ago, of course, but nowadays it's like very blatant and very in your face. I haven't watched it in forever, but from what I hear. But yeah, the Make Love Not Porn site is actual real people, and you can sign up to be a couple that gets, that uploads your videos to show actual like love making versus just, so I would imagine there'd be a lot more emphasis on the women's parts that feel good instead of the traditional porn where it's just slamming a woman and she acts like she loves it and her clit's not being touched at all.
Well, and that goes back to, whoever makes it, trying to make variety or whatever. And the hard thing to know is, when does the cart become before the horse? When is, things that are recorded in pornographic films, when are they, let's invent something versus when are they, they've gone through straight sex a lot and now they're exploring, kinks and fetishes and whatnot. And, I try not to be too, judgmental on that stuff because it's, whatever is right or wrong for me doesn't mean it's right or wrong for someone else,
Yeah. And the whole point of this podcast too is to be very open to anything and everything and no judgment, no issues, whatever you're into. And I do want to go back to, though, because I did say this would be kind of like a how-to episode. So
sure.
I'm just going to say the tip of the head of the penis, which people have said I can't say the words, but I'm saying the proper words, is the most sensitive area. Is that not true? Yes. Generally, or not in your experience? I know some guys have been like that. Only the tip or only the head. I mean, right at the near the top, definitely not the bottom.
The issue is, you're not going to get anywhere just touching the tip. It's going to take more than that. Speaking as someone who has had a penis for many decades, the head is obviously the most sensitive part. But as far as the stimulation goes, in order for a man to, reach an orgasm, is there has to be that pressure, that stroke on I would say the forward half from the middle to the head up. Yeah. A lot of stuff way down by the bottom just kind of gets lost. And
I heard that's even
at least for me.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's what I meant. Like as long as the stroke is touching the tip, up and down, and the frenulum, a friend told me it's called, which I didn't know, the ridge, other people have called it, the bottom of the head, whatever that motion of going over, up and down from there. And you can ask the guy to like do it for himself and watch and see what he likes versus just guess and do it wrong. The amount of pressure, like you said, in the stroke, the faster quickness of it, depending on you. Go ahead. You can speak more to this, obviously.
Sure. And from my personal experience, the lubrication and a stroke that goes up the shaft and then includes the head too, not just like the from the middle to the head, whatever, but, kind of the whole thing. Something that simulates more, I guess, the feeling of actual intercourse, where it's not just, you're not just moving the middle of the shaft, but you're kind of, going over
like in and out motion,
the whole
both.
thing.
The hand, in and out motion,
Correct,
of the hand,
correct.
the mouth, and
absolutely. That does the trick for me. That works. That's something I really enjoy.
And for women, they say the consistency, on the Make Love Not Porn site, they talk about this too. We want a consistent stroke, of the clit as well. Like it's gotta, if the consistency is what makes it happen. Like if you get close and then you switch it up or stop, granted you talk first to figure out what's working and then continue that for enough time. But once again, it goes back to, if you touch a woman and you're sweet to her and nice to her and don't and start kissing and touching nipples and everywhere else, then go there, she's already going to be turned on. You can come within minutes if you do enough foreplay. And the guys live for that. Women live for it. We want our partners to have orgasms. It's not the be all end all, but yes, it kind of should be, not the goal, but enjoying the process as well.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's part of sex, but I'm not in my 20s anymore. I don't think that it's the checkered flag at the end of the race. There is it's so much broader than that. But as far as for a guy being on the receiving end, yeah, I mean, I'm to the point now where I can have that discussion with somebody. It's like, hey, it would feel better if maybe you added this, as opposed to just kind of, because honestly, again, I can only speak for myself. If the grip isn't right, the motion isn't right, whatever isn't right, it's never going to happen. You could lay there for 3 hours and do what you're doing, and we'll just both be frustrated. So life is too short for that. So you have to tell them, hey, this is what's going to do it. We're at the point, once you're past 30, you should know what does and doesn't do it for you, and you should just be able to articulate that to the person you're with to get you where you want to be. I mean, I would never, if I was giving to a woman and, I wouldn't ever take her advice and say, oh, no, don't worry. I know what I'm doing down here.
Yeah, I know better. Yeah, you would not.
Exactly. You don't. Everybody's different, and what everybody likes is a little different. So you got to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, we're getting towards the end, so I will just say, hopefully this wasn't too much for some people. I mean, I think this is a much needed conversation. I don't know. Hopefully we did it enough justice, but communication obviously is key, and everyone's different, and it's harder. It can be hard to just say. So maybe suggesting, do you like it harder or softer versus do you like it? Because then most people are going to be obligated to be like, yeah, I love it, and because no one wants to be mean, no one wants to upset anyone. But I've heard of people literally enduring it, on both sides. Both sides don't think the other is very good at it, and I really hope that this at least gives you insight, some of the resources to look at, just things to think about. But, any closing thoughts for you?
Practice. If it's something that you enjoy, talk about it with your partner and do it more frequently. And, it's like anything, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And the more you talk about it, the better you're going to get at it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can even literally be like, all right, try touching me and then do different things and say, yes, that works. Do this, try that. I talk about in my stand up, a 40-year-old virgin, and I literally was like, yeah, this is where it is, and like let him figure it out. And it worked really well, And I really wish I didn't say that just now. No, but I say it in my stand-up, so I might as well. But yeah, just like you said, practice, and if it's in an environment like, hey, let's just see how it feels and do it as a test practice case versus then you don't have to feel bad. You're like literally trying to find out. What were you going to say?
Well, what do you think the biggest mistakes are guys make when they, a man's head ends up in your lap and you're just kind of like,
Yeah. Well, to me, like you need both places. I mean, all places aren't a bad thing too, but a finger inside while touching or even a finger on it, meaning the clit, but just, only one or the other, a combo. And then, like I said, if the woman makes the noise in the right places, she'll, that'll clue her in. And the guy can take note of that. Like I try to make it clear, or like, and if you kind of move a hand or move your body up or down or sideways, that's kind of like the clue, like, hey, we're a little off center, or you could move a little bit, or, faster, slower. Like, if they're not making noise, maybe at least we can, like you said, look for physical clues of your hand or whatever. But yeah, and then the inconsistency, I mean, I guess, yeah, obviously I haven't done it, but I'm sure your tongue gets tired, so it's like you can only do it for so long. But, like when you switch it up,
surprised.
Yeah. Oh, it doesn't really get tired. All right. I would, so I have no idea.
Again, so yeah. And then guys, we don't know, when you're going to do that with a woman. Like I have about between a 5 and an 8 o'clock shadow all the time. And I don't know, some women have not commented on that at all. Some have said, oh, that kind of feels weird, or I don't know, so that's another conversation you have to have with somebody. I mean, if there's, if the whiskers aren't doing it for him, maybe, I don't know. You have to look into that. I guess you could say the same thing about pubic hair.
Grooming. About grooming down there. Yeah, we can go there. Yeah, some people definitely want it gone. Some people like it and don't. There are definitely men that have no problem having hair down there for women, but a lot of women assume all men want it gone.
Yeah, and that's a bad assumption to make, because from the group of people I know that I've actually discussed the topic with, the consensus is pretty much, if there's no hair there at all, it's like, especially guys who are fathers, they're like, it creeps me out. It reminds me of when I was changing my daughter's diaper. Some people look for that. Some people, the visual of hair, I'm one of those people. I don't like it when it's, ladies, save yourself the pain and the cost of going to the waxer and just give it up. A little trimming is fine. It shouldn't look like Harlem Globetrotters afro down there, but it doesn't need to be, just some little dime-sized token piece of, just, I don't know. That's a tough topic.
And I feel the same way. I feel the same way for men. Like I really could care less about grooming. Like you said, trimming's fine, but it doesn't bother me at all. But I know a lot of guys that think they need to do it as well or prefer it.
I was in that camp when I was younger, but it takes forever because that thing is not a shape that was built to be shaved. And B, the itch, when like 3 days later, and the volume and weird spots that it itches, it's just, keep it trimmed, keep it looking presentable, like you do with your hair. Nobody just stops going to the barber and lets their hair go everywhere. And not a lot of people completely shave their head. There's a happy medium.
All right. Well, we are getting close to time. I try to keep it around 30 minutes. So thank you very much, Vince. And hopefully people are not, hopefully they enjoyed it or got something out of it. That is the goal here. And if you liked it, please subscribe to the podcast itself. Give reviews if you really like it. And thank you again, Vince. I appreciate you being here.
You're welcome. And, have me back anytime. It's fun to talk about these things, and hopefully someone can hear it and say, oh, wow, I learned something.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm doing it. All right. Thank you.
Frank Talk, sex and dating educates.